Holy Humans second expansion. Yeah, it's going to be that kind of a game. Things are going to get pretty crazy pretty fast here. One thing that human players will like to do on Lost Temple is immediately after throwing down their first expansion, they will throw down a second. The reason for this is that human players have a whole lot of resources at Tier 1 that they don't necessarily want to spend making a lot of footmen. And before they get their Tier 2 tech, they just have a stockpile of resources. If you quickly go over to Holy Human's perspective, you can see he has about 600 gold, and so he has used his resources well. But one thing that they will often do is they will use that time, or use those resources to throw up a second expansion and get that much more of an advantage over you, because just why the heck not? If one expansion goes down, they'll still have the other. In any event, this is something that you need to be anticipating, just like Chipotle's doing. And he's, again, splitting his army, forcing Holy Human to split his focus, and he's sent only his Huntresses over to that expansion to try to kill peasants, which he has done effectively. But he didn't have quite enough, so you can see Holy Human's towers are going to go up. That's okay. Chipotle has done a great job of harassing. He's killed a whole bunch of peasants and some units. He got himself into a little bit of trouble here. But he will quickly kill that footman and get out of the surround. And the big thing here is he was able to kill all of Holy Human's peasants. And you can see Holy Human was this time right on top of that. He's got another group ready to set up the expansion. But it's always still helpful to kill all the peasants, because that forces Human to bring over a whole other group. So that was another moderately successful. I mean, ideally you can cancel that expansion entirely if you're forceful about it and you time it correctly. But it was still a pretty successful move by Chipotle to harass as much as you can. Meanwhile, he has his Tier 2 tech well and underway now. He hasn't forgotten to make his lures. And actually, he's just reached Tier 3. Again, with the multitasking, he's making sure to do all of this at once. And you'll notice that he didn't even stop for Dryads. This, in my opinion, is somewhat of a matter of preference. Dryads are fairly useful if you can catch the human out in the open. But what Dryads are not useful against is towers. And if you're playing against a human player who sets up a second expansion like this, chances are he's not really going to be massing a lot of units, or at least not until later. Generally speaking, if the human player just goes one expansion and starts massing riflemen, it's sometimes useful to get a few Dryads. You can try to pick off units until you get your bears. But if he goes two expansions and he's using his resources, he's really just massing up resources, and there's a fairly good chance that he's not going to be making any units at all until later. He's going to be going mass error, he's going to be going workshop units, in which case you need to be offensive on his expansion as quickly as possible, and fast bears is probably the way to go. So there's the rationale besides that decision, into that decision. And Chipotle's at this point using the fountain to two purposes: to make sure to creep and to heal up his units as well. Making sure to just using the time before he gets master bears to get a little bit of levels and some items on his heroes. And at the moment he's having to respond to a harassment attempt of Holy Human on his expansion. You'll notice that he still doesn't have a town portal, but this is why the staff of TP is so useful. He doesn't need a TP, he just needs his Demon Hunter home. Maybe with the rest of his units there, he would be able to fight this off a little bit better. As it is, he's having to do a lot of work just repairing to make sure that that thing stays up. And it's still going to die, but even with just a Demon Hunter there, he's already been able to kill 3 footmen. And just rattling 1 bear over. He's now killing all 5 footmen and the water elementals. He didn't need his army there. He can use his army to other purposes. And those purposes, for the time being, are going to be running over to what he thinks is probably Holy Human's more vulnerable expansion. So again, the theme of this match is going to continue to be always using your army to the most effective purpose possible, and trying to anticipate your opponent at all times. Chipotle's doing a lot of splitting of his army, doing lots of things at once. Creeping only when it's extremely efficient for himself to do so. Otherwise, just trying to stay on the offensive, trying to stay ahead of Holy Human. So you can see, he's now brought his Demon Hunter. He's using his entire army to try to take down this expansion of Holy Humans. If he can take down a second expansion, he'll be in much better position. One thing that Chipotle did not do here, which you might try to work into your order somehow, is make sure that you can try to get your Demon Hunter or Keeper home to have a staff on your hero. It's very useful when you're using these bears against towers to be able to staff things away, especially if the human shows up with bolts or anything like that. But Chipotle didn't have a convenient time when he could run home. That's okay. He's just going to use Rejuve and a little bit of Micro and entangle to take down these towers as best you can. And you'll notice that even as Chipotee is doing this, Holy Humans is setting up a third expansion at the nearby place with plenty of towers to protect it. So Holy Human is expanding very aggressively, defending all of his expansions with a lot of fortifications, already level 2 masonry on his towers. And so this is going to be a good example on how to fight a human who doesn't make an army, who just expands in towers like crazy, which is probably, in my opinion, the hardest thing to fight against on this map. So you'll see Chipotee just using his bears. This is why bears are so useful. Dryads wouldn't have done him any good here. Bears are so useful against a human who's just making towers like this. He was able to take down all the towers without losing hardly anything, and pretty soon he'll be able to take out the expansion. Meanwhile, of course, Holy Human's not going to just sit back. He's going to continue harassing Chipotee's base, but you'll notice that Chipotee doesn't panic. He doesn't TP home or do anything like that. He's just going to use whatever units are available at his disposal to deal with this harassment, while he continues to stay on the aggressive. And you'll notice that Chipotee always finding Holy Human's expansions, using his wisps to scout, and going to the logical places where Holy Human might have expanded, to make sure that he stays on top of all of Holy Human's attempts. And you'll notice with that expansion that Chipotee didn't kill. He didn't stay to kill the town hall. When you think about it, that'd be rather pointless. Holy Human's not getting anything out of that town hall right now. All he needs to do is leave one bear to make sure that no more peasants come out. In the meantime, he can use his army to another purpose. It's this kind of thinking that wins you games on this map. You gotta always be splitting your army, doing as much as you can in the most efficient way that you can. And Chipotee's choosing to try to take down this expansion of Holy Humans. Holy Human, unfortunately, in this case, has built just the right amount of towers, which is a lot. And Chipotee's actually losing his bears in the process of trying to micro his home. In addition to the bear fight at Holy Human's third expansion. And you'll notice that at Holy Human's second expansion, the one to the right of where Chipotee is fighting right now, Chipotee is actually putting down a Tree of Life of his own, because why not? You look at his resources, he's got plenty of gold, and it's important to expand whenever you have the opportunity, because you never know what expansion will end up being your last gold mine that wins you the game. You always should expand if you have the resources in this kind of a fight. You know it's going to turn into a big late game ugly fight of expansion hunting, and so a lot of times the person who has the more protected expansions wins. So you got to always be on top of that whenever you're available. Chipotee also at this point is choosing not to go over 50 food, which is probably a pretty good decision when you think about it. It's a nice little move by Chipotee there to catch the Archmage out in the open. And meanwhile, Chipotee has just been rallying his hurt bears to the center where they are healing. Should always use that Fountain of Health to your advantage on this map. And if you look back at Chipotee's base, he is just continuing to pump more bears, because bears at the moment are his best answer to the towers, with rejuvenation and their heavy armor. But and you can see looking at Holy Human's base that he is just now getting out his workshop units. You might wonder why it's taken him so long to do it, and the reason is that he invested very heavily in expanding and towering. He didn't have the resources to do this, and Chipotee is countering that very nicely with the bears, with just, like I said, rejuve and the heavy armor as an answer to the towers. You can see that Chipotee is losing some bears up here. There's always room for improvement with this kind of stuff. Ideally, you want to try to keep all your bears alive. It's very hard to do while you're multitasking like this. And just use that Fountain of Health and Rejuvenation as best you can. You can see already that over to the right of where we are, Chipotee's expansion is coming up. Or rather has come up, and he's about ready to cue some wisps. And he's just staying on this expansion of Holy Humans. By the way, for anybody who needs an explanation as to why you go Demon Hunter on this map, the reason you go Demon Hunter is that in addition to being an all-around solid hero, Demon Hunter is your best answer to late-game human towers. That's another thing you want to bear in mind, is that